لظرف طارئ خارج منطقة مكة المكرمة واجهه معالي الدكتور أسامة البار أمين العاصمة المقدسة، فهو يعتذر منكم عن المشاركة في هذه الجلسة. سوف يرأس هذه الجلسة نيابة عن الدكتور نبيل بن عبد القادر كوشك وكيل الجامعة للأعمال والإبداع المعرفي.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. نبدأ بإذن الله تعالى الجلسة الأولى والتي يشارك فيها 3 متحدثين من الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية ومن المملكة المتحدة ومن كندا. نبدأ بالمشاركة الأولى لسعادة الدكتور عبدول علي، وهو من كلية بابسون. وعبدول يركز في أبحاثه ودراساته على تسويق ريادة الأعمال وإدارة المنتج الجديد وتحويله إلى الأسواق واستراتيجياتها ونتائجها. وقد نشرت أبحاثه في مجلات علمية مختلفة عن الإدارة والإبداع التقني، ومجلة الاقتصاد الإداري والقرار، ومجلة أبحاث الأعمال وأبحاث التسويق. جامعة بابسون لا يخفى على المشاركون أنها من أهم الجامعات في الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، إن لم تصنف في العام الماضي الجامعة رقم 1 في ريادة الأعمال وتخريج طلابها من الطلاب المتميزين في ريادة الأعمال. وقد قام الدكتور عبدول بكتابة عدد من الكتب في مجال الابتكار وريادة الأعمال. تفضل دكتور عبدول علي بالبدء في تقديم مشاركتكم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, distinguished director, guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really privileged and honored to be here with you. On behalf of Babson College, I convey our warm wishes and success for this endeavor, and hopefully it will be a great success for you and in near future. The title of my presentation today is Big E and Little E of Entrepreneurship, a Babson Perspective. Now, you must be wondering, what is the big E and little e? After all, the word entrepreneurship starts with the letter E, and so we want to make a distinction between the discipline perspective and the bigger context through which the entrepreneurship works, and we'll give you a Babson perspective. So the title shows something about entrepreneurship and Babson, and you must be wondering why entrepreneurships and why Babson? What does Babson has to do with entrepreneurship, and how do we make a distinction between little e and big E, and what is our experience with this perspective? So this is the agenda of my outline of my today's presentation. And if I sound a little bit not so sharp, please excuse me because I missed my connecting flight, arrived last night at 2 o'clock, then performed Umrah, and didn't sleep for the last 48 hours. So please excuse me if I'm not that very coherent for a few minutes, okay? So why entrepreneurship? Why is entrepreneurship important? The previous speakers talks about entrepreneurship in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. And if you look at around the whole world, the things are changing. There's a lot of disruptions. There's a global climate change, the economic superpower emerging in the Asia. In fact, one of the former foreign minister of Australia said, in the last 500 years, economic superpower was always with the West. And in the last 200 years, over 200 years, economic superpower was always with a democratic country. And now for the first time, after 500 years of Western domination, the Chinese and the Asian emergence is emerging. And as a result, it's creating a lot of disruption along with the technological change, intense competition, and global warming. So how does entrepreneurship help in this situation? And what we claim at Babson, that entrepreneurship can provide lots of solutions to our challenges and the problems we are facing in today's world. So to make a difference, entrepreneurs are job creators, not job consumers. President Hu of China, when he visited US a couple of years ago, when President George Bush was the president of the United States, and President Bush asked President Hu of China, what keeps you awake in the night? And President Bush was expecting he will talk about the competition or enmity between the neighbors and so on. But to his surprise, President Hu replied to President Bush saying that what keeps me awake is job creation. Every year, millions of Chinese are entering into the job market, and I have to keep them busy and keep them working, okay? And entrepreneurs is the solution, because entrepreneurs create jobs, they don't consume jobs. And entrepreneurs, through this job creation, create the economic well-being of the country, and as a result, promote the social growth in the country. And entrepreneur leaders create value everywhere. It's not just the Western phenomena, not just the Middle East phenomena, it's all over the world. So especially if you look at it in the Middle East context, the population is growing, and especially the youth population, and the government and the public sector simply cannot employ all the youth and all the people who are eligible for work. Similarly, the private sector, the large corporations simply cannot have that many jobs available. So the only way you could absorb all this young population is through job creation and through entrepreneurships. So why is Babson has to do with this entrepreneurship? So pardon me my bragging, but let me show you that entrepreneurship is in our DNA. It started with the Roger Babson, who founded our institution. In fact, our college is named after him. He started in 1919, immediately after the World War I. And he has a value for most practical and ethical ways of doing business. And he tries to promote that one of the economic causes of the war should be abolished, so that countries should not fight with each other because of economic reason. And he went on to fight about this, and he also competed in the presidential election against Roosevelt. And he also promoted the family business. He said that most of the companies, if you look around the whole world, is operated by the family businesses, and he tried to promote the family enterprises. And in fact, one of his goals of starting Babson College was to educate the sons of business people so that they can become the leader in the country. And it became a college in 1949, and then we started the entrepreneurship focus in 1978, because we teach only business, nothing else, and entrepreneurship is the main focus in our college. So how we are doing? Again, pardon my little bit of show off. Some of you may not have heard of Babson College, but I'm sure you have heard of Stanford, Harvard, MIT, University of Pennsylvania, University of California, Berkeley. So if you look at this, all these schools rank below Babson in terms of specialty on entrepreneurship in US News and World Report. And as a matter of fact, for the last 14 to 15 years, we are ranked #1 in entrepreneurship in whole USA. Similarly, in entrepreneurship magazines, this is the last year ranking, Babson College ranked above all those other schools. And naturally, you'll appreciate that must be we are doing something which was recognized by all these different peers and the competitive magazines to rank us above all those well-known names you are very familiar with. So what is the little e of entrepreneurships? Well, the little e of entrepreneurship we define from a division or discipline perspective. Like in entrepreneurship, I'm sure most of you are familiar with, is that entrepreneurs start a business, but they don't have enough resources, so they need to leverage those resources. They have to identify an opportunity and act on those opportunities which others don't see it. And through that process, they will create the economic and social value everywhere. So this is basically the definition of the entrepreneurship as practiced and adopted by academic discipline called entrepreneurship. And we call it little e because it's very narrow view of a discipline perspective. It doesn't talk about the entrepreneurship in the overall bigger context of the world we are facing today. So how do we define the Babson perspective of entrepreneurship, which is different from a narrow focus of entrepreneurship from a discipline perspective? Well, we claim that the entrepreneurial mindset is not the exclusive domain of a lone visionary or leader, and nor it should be the subject matter of a discipline or academic division. We claim that when a team divisions and everybody works together, whether it's a for-profit, non-profit, or government agency, together they can create the economic and social value for everywhere, and it uplifts the whole society. And it just crosses the national boundary. It doesn't belong to only one particular country. So this is our big definition of entrepreneurship, that we claim that entrepreneurship is not the subject matter of an individual discipline or academic division. It's an entrepreneurial mindset, entrepreneurial thought and action, which promote the entrepreneurship of all kinds. So not only starting a business, but how you are solving the problem. For example, here in Mecca, during the Hajj, you get a tremendous volume of population, but it's very temporary in nature, but you do a remarkable job in crowd control, traffic management, and all those big city problems you get in a very short span of time. And it creates lots of challenges, but you also can solve it through an entrepreneurial mindset. And that's what we are talking about, that it should be entrepreneurship of all kinds, not necessarily starting a business, but solving any problem creatively. And through that process, you create economic and social value everywhere. So this is our mission of Babson College, that we adopted this mission in 1978, as we mentioned earlier, that we want to educate leaders who create the economic and social value everywhere. So we are not just focusing on money, but we're also talking about how it benefits the whole society and all the stakeholders, not only your customers, but your employee, your community, your partners, and the country and the environment. So we want to make a distinction between big E from a broader perspective of the society, and then the little e from an academic discipline perspective. And we want to make this distinction in 3 different areas. How do we do research? How do we design our curriculum and teach in our classes? And what are the co-curricular activity which is outside the classroom and through which we promote entrepreneurship? And we do this in many different ways. Type of culture we have in our organizations, among our students, among our faculty, among our staff, type of resources we deploy, the infrastructure we have, and the innovation and creativity we sustain in our academic environment, and how do we govern the whole administrative structure. So we claim that entrepreneurship is the method. Some are born entrepreneurs, but you can also learn entrepreneurship through some practice and a process. And it can be applied in a different situation, and not only just creating a new venture or new businesses. It's a powerful social change agent, and it provides for the simultaneous creation of the social, economic, and environmental issues. And through this, the value creation and value captures are realized. Hopefully, through that process, you will have a better world in the future. So what is the Babson DNA? In the Babson DNA, we study the method of entrepreneurial thought and action. The ETA stands for entrepreneurial thought and actions. It's just not starting a business, but your mindset. How do you think entrepreneurially and how do you act entrepreneurially? That builds the capability to act in the face of extreme uncertainty. So you have to have a cognitive ambidexterity. Ambidexterity means that both of your hands you are equally skilled. So not only you have to have a causal or reasoning efficiency, but at the same time, you should be also comfortable in dealing with ambiguity. So you should not only use your causal reasoning, but you should also use your effectual reasoning, go by sometime intuition, sometime your guess, and sometime by the deductive logics. And you have to be excellent in both ways of doing business. So you shouldn't just promote the causal reasoning, but you should also do through the deductive reasoning.
Excuse me? You have 3 minutes left.
3 minutes?
Yeah.
Oops. Then I will then go through a little bit more then, okay? So what we have done is that in Babson, we have eliminated the different boundaries, and we try to work together. There's no such thing as marketing division or finance division. We work through a diverse population. We have different types of programs. In our first year of the student, when they come to Babson, we put them into teams, and they start a business. Babson gives them $3,000, and they start a new business. They form a company, they sell, and the profit then goes to the charities. And through this, student exercise the entrepreneurial experiences. Similarly, our graduate has a similar experience-based curriculum. In the interest of time, I'll just skip a little bit, and so I'll just show you here how entrepreneurship has helped our student. When they go for a job market, we interview our student, and they claim that they have enhanced creativity and innovative thinking. They think outside the box. They develop the mindset to identify opportunity, and they can work in a team, and they can leverage the scarce resources. In terms of research, we have all these different techniques and the tools, and we collect data from entrepreneurial activity all over the world. And there are universities and academic institutions all over the world has participated. And just to give you results from last year's study, we studied in 54 economies, 388 million entrepreneurs have started businesses. Out of those 388 millions, 141 millions expect to hire at least 5 people. Another 65 million expect to hire 20 or more people. So you can see that entrepreneurs create jobs, and that's the one new way to solve the global problem. We have all the different types of research technique. In the interest of time, I'll not go through in detail, but what I'll do is that, sorry for excuse that, let me just go through so give you an idea how many faculty we have. We have all these different faculty, and they take 102 different classes. And most of the faculty are coming have an entrepreneurial background. They started their own businesses. And we have published a lot of things. We have a different co-curricular activity. We have a business plan competitions. And we try to do have a different types of partnership with the local Boston area companies and entrepreneurial organizations. And we also have a partnership with the engineering school next door to our campus. And our alumni is all over the world. So here's some of the things what we have learned. So if you excuse me for a few minutes, so this is what we expect, that if you really want to be successful building an entrepreneurial ecosystem, you should have a champion, you should have a clear vision, commitment to the long term, and get the entrepreneurship across all different programs and stakeholders. This is some of the companies launched by Babson alum. Home Depot, you know, Pepsi is the senior manager, but Jiffy Lube, Lycos, all these companies are launched by a Babson student. And some of this is the company you don't know now, but will be the future generations, okay? So, so entrepreneurship is all about getting and accessing and mobilizing resources, embracing ambiguity and uncertainty, and developing opportunity across the border. And this is the Babson's, in essence, building leadership and entrepreneurship. And this is what we started in 1978. And today we recognize the #1 in entrepreneurship because it's a hard work, dedication, and through collaboration like school, like UQ. So I want to conclude my presentation with some thought. This is from Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel laureate from the Grameen Bank founder, who said, "We are all entrepreneurs, but very few have the opportunity to practice it." And finally, I end with this message from Mahatma Gandhi from India, whose message about wealth without work, workship without sacrifice, politics without principle, pleasure with conscience, knowledge without character, commerce without morality, and science without humanity is not good. And this is what we try to practice in our business environment and with our partner. Thank you very much. Shukran.
شكرا دكتور عبدول على هذه المشاركة لكلية بابسون التي شاركت في تأسيس عدد من الشركات لخريجيها، وأيضا خلق فرص من العمل للملايين من خريجي الجامعة. ننتقل الآن إلى جامعة أكسفورد. المتحدث الدكتور ديفيد باغرست. درس ديفيد الكيمياء في جامعة أكسفورد قبل أن يكمل الدكتوراه في تطبيقات الموجات الكهرومغناطيسية في التركيبات الكيميائية، وبعد أن عمل كمحاضر متفرغ في الكيمياء لمدة عامين في كلية إمبريال في لندن، انضم إلى مجموعة كوكسون كرئيس للمجموعة للمنتجات المتقدمة في مركز المجموعة التكنولوجي، ثم انضم إلى أكسفورد تراست كمدير للبرامج الصناعية في عام 1996، حيث عمل على دعم تأسيس ونمو شركات التقنية وإدارة حاضنات أعمال التقنية وإدارة وشبكات الأعمال. في عام 2002 انضم إلى آيسيس، وآيسيس هذه شركة شبيهة بالشركات الجامعية التي أسست في المملكة العربية السعودية، وكان آخرها شركة وادي مكة للتقنية، وشركة تعمل على نقل التقنية من جامعة أكسفورد إلى المجتمع. من الجدير بالذكر أيضا أن ديفيد يحمل الماجستير في إدارة الأعمال من كلية الإدارية من جامعة ووريك، وكان عضوا في مجلس الإدارة للعديد من شركات التقنية الناشئة. Please, David.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to speak to you this morning. This is my first visit to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I sincerely hope that following this visit, I will have many other opportunities to come here. As was mentioned in the introduction, I've been trying to create startup companies for Oxford and for other institutions and to commercialize science technologies for the past 15 to 20 years. And it's a very, very difficult and challenging activity. So what I wanted to do in this talk is point out some of the successes, some of the initiatives that we've had in Oxford and in other places I've worked over the years that have successfully contributed towards the creation of successful entrepreneurial ventures. Just a short slide of introduction to Oxford and ISIS. Oxford University is the oldest university in the English-speaking world, roughly about 800 years old. Today, it's the most powerful UK research university. We have the highest university research spend in the UK, about £500 million, and we're #1 in the world for translational medicine, taking the fruits of initial healthcare research and transferring them into clinical practice. ISIS Innovation itself is a much newer company. We were created in 1987 as a wholly owned subsidiary of the university to commercialize research. We work with researchers who wish to commercialize their research, which is a subset of the total set of researchers at the university. Today we have offices in Oxford, Hong Kong, Japan and Spain. My home is in Hong Kong, where I bring our technologies closer to the Asian market, to Asian collaborating industrial companies and to Asian investors. What does ISIS do? Well, in essence, we take the fruits of research generated in universities, institutes and companies, and we facilitate the transfer of that research into either new companies or established companies. Our strategy is always to try and search for an existing business that has the capacity to take hold of the research and to develop that research into new products. But from time to time, we get to work on new ventures. These are a few examples of fairly recent work that we've been involved in. The company at the top, Oxford Nanopore, that is a company which brings together technology from Oxford, from some US universities, and from a Swiss startup company. And it's generating new products in the area of personalized DNA analysis. That is one of the very strong companies within the portfolio of businesses that we worked on in Oxford. And it's a chemistry company, and chemistry is my background. And I had the initial conversation with the researcher. The first invention disclosure that came from that academic was to me. So it's a project I know very well and I feel a great affinity for. At the bottom left-hand side, you'll see that we have a company called Yasser Motors. Yasser is developing a high-torque electric motor. It's a project from the Department of Engineering in Oxford. That project I wanted to highlight because the investors in that company are from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So that is an example of some work that we've already managed to do with partners and collaborators in the Kingdom. On the bottom right-hand side, that is an example of technology from Stellenbosch University. Stellenbosch University is a leading university from South Africa. We met with the technology transfer staff. We helped to train them through a government program. And we became aware of a fantastic production technology for producing very large amounts of nanofibers. These nanofibers can be incorporated into composites, and they can improve the performance, reduce the cost, reduce the weight of aircraft components. Fantastic technology. We took that technology and we introduced it to 15 of the world's leading multinational companies, and now that technology is being embedded into those companies for different applications in the US, in Europe, and also in Asia. So those are the sorts of projects that we work on. The statistics here show that over the years, the growth in our activities, the staffing in ISIS, we are paid out of our share of the projects that we get involved in. And you can see that over time the number of staff involved has increased as our company has increased its critical mass. We've also improved the efficiency in terms of the number of deals that we do compared to the number of projects that we work on. So now we are very selective. We take hold of those projects we think can be commercialized, and then we use our established contact networks to test those ideas in the marketplace and hopefully find commercialization partners. Now, back in the early days, one of the very successful activities that we established was a formal business academic networking organization, the Oxford Innovation Society. Through that society, we get to know leading industrial companies throughout the world. Those companies get to be introduced to leading Oxford researchers. And over the last 22 years, that society has been central to our ability to test and to understand new technology and to put it into the hands of leading industrial companies. So I think anyone involved in technology commercialization activity should be encouraged to harness this kind of network. The next big change in Oxford happened in 1997. Before 1997, the technology commercialization office in Oxford was very small. It was just 3 people. In 1997, the university decided to invest more into that activity. But probably the most important thing they did was they recruited as the new managing director of ISIS someone who had an academic Oxford education but had left the university to run very successful technology-based businesses over a number of years, including one of the university's very early, very successful, very large spin-out companies, a chemistry company called Oxford Asymmetry. Tim also had some experience as an investor because he used part of the wealth created out of the sale of Oxford Asymmetry to invest in other technology companies. So Tim brought together an understanding of academia, industry and investment into the heart of the fledgling rebirth of ISIS innovation. And that was really key to the pickup in ISIS activities from 1997 onwards. In 1997, Tim set out the strategy for how we would become involved in creating spin-outs. As I said before, our preference is to find an existing business to license technology to, but from time to time we have to create a new company. And our philosophy and strategy and approach to this is not to encourage the research group head to leave the university and become the managing director of a new company. No, our preference is that they will remain inside the university being an academic, but we will recruit an experienced business manager from outside, from industry, to come in and be the new company's experienced managing director. Typical in this model is that there is a senior scientist within the research group, maybe a postdoctoral student or a PhD student, who transfers into the new company and transfers the experience of having performed the research in the laboratory. They take the experience of the lab work into the company. The partners, the collaborators, the team in the creation of the spin-out companies, well, at the start, that is the founder researchers and some ISIS technology transfer managers, our project managers. In creating a company, our attitude is that the university and the researchers are equal partners in the new venture. And over a period of time, we have to develop and refine a business plan, recruit some investors and recruit some managers, leading towards the point of investment when the company has been fully formed and is fully fledged. We spin out, in comparison to other universities, a relatively small number of companies, but our success rate is very, very high because we are very careful in the planning of creating genuine, real companies. In 1999, we realized that one of the things that companies need in order to grow is that they need investment capital. So in 1999, with the support of a government program, we created a small seed fund. The seed fund invests at the gap between the results of the university research and the point at which a venture capitalist would invest in a project. So this is a university seed fund. That model of university seed fund we've replicated recently in a fund that we've helped create in Spain. And the purpose of that fund is exactly the same. It's to take promising research results from the laboratory, invest a little bit of money so that you end up with something which is a more commercial proposition. In 2002, there's a big increase in the efficiency of our technology transfer activity because we realized that having technology transfer project managers with a scientific background was useful in the conversations that they would have with the researchers, but not necessarily so useful in talking to industry. So from 2002 onwards, we exclusively recruit technology transfer project managers in ISIS who've worked for the world's leading technology companies. So today we have 77 staff, 37 have PhDs, 18 MBAs, we speak multiple languages. And on the slide you can see some examples of the names of the companies where our people have worked. It makes us much more credible when we approach a company like GlaxoSmithKline, GSK, if the person who's making that approach used to work there and understands how that business works. In 2005, we began to offer services outside of Oxford. Today, we do a lot of benchmarking work for governments. We provide training to technology transfer staff and to staff from companies. We enter long-term partnerships. We help to create seed funds. We also do some technology scouting assignments for industrial companies. From 2006 onwards, we began to integrate industrial product design into our technology transfer work. And the pictures on this slide really provide the best illustration of this. On the left-hand side, you can see a prototype produced in the engineering laboratory. This is a 3D scanner which is made of wood and a webcam and a piece of broken glass. When you approach industry with a prototype that looks like this, it's not very impressive. But by putting that model into the hands of an industrial designer, they can come up with something much more realistic and much more credible. So industrial product design is an essential ingredient in the mix of activities that we perform. From 2010 onwards, we started to concentrate on software projects. Software projects, a lot of our historic portfolio is based on a lot of patented technology. From 2010 onwards, we started to work with more junior members of the university who maybe had ideas for software businesses. So now we have a software incubator. That software incubator is in the premises of ISIS. We have within our team people who've set up, run, sold successful software businesses. And the companies that we incubate can benefit from their business experience and expertise. In 2011, there was a coming together of the University of Oxford and the local teaching hospitals with a framework collaboration agreement, which results in ISIS having a much closer involvement in commercialization of all the universities and the local hospitals' innovations. So this further strengthens our position of leadership in translational medicine. So what are we working on at the moment? Well, at the moment, I've got some interesting projects here on this slide. The project on the left is a medical instrument. It's based on Oxford technology. The project in the middle is an antibiotic technology from Spain. The project on the right is a collaborative partnership which has created low-cost transparent conductors which don't use expensive indium as their base starting material. I'm also working on the creation of a network of development centers across the world. A development center will attract overseas intellectual property and match it to the needs of local businesses. It's a little bit like a localized version of ISIS. And the first one of these development centers has been established in China. I would love to create a similar kind of initiative in the kingdom. In summary, I think if you're trying to work out what we're good at, our expertise, which has evolved over the last 25 years, our expertise is recognizing the value of breakthrough technology and working out how to get it to market. We have a very open, collaborative style. We're very easy to work with. We work for clients in 50 countries. We would love to collaborate with people from the kingdom. If you want to find out more about ISIS, then this is our website. I would be delighted to have conversations with you during the breaks if anyone is interested in our work. Thank you again for the invitation to speak. Thank you.
شكرا دكتور ديفيد على هذه المشاركة لتحويل الناتج البحثي من جامعة أكسفورد إلى منتجات وشركات تخدم المجتمع وتنقل المعرفة من جامعة أكسفورد إلى المجتمع. ننتقل الآن إلى المتحدث الثالث دكتور باول جيلد من جامعة ووترلو في كندا. يعمل الدكتور باول أستاذاً في قسم العلوم الإدارية في كلية الهندسة في جامعة ووترلو الكندية، ويدرس طلاب الدراسات العليا في مركز ووترلو ريادة الأعمال التقنية. وما بين 1990 و2001 ترأس كرسي البحث الصناعي لإدارة الابتكار التقني بدعم من مجلس العلوم الطبيعية والبحث الهندسي ومجلس أبحاث العلوم الاجتماعية والدراسات الإنسانية بدعم صناعي من بيل نورثرن والبنك البنك الكندي للتجارة. وتنصب اهتماماته على الطرق الجديدة لنقل التقنية والابتكار المفتوح وذكاء التقنية والتخطيط والأساليب الجديدة لتقييم جدارة الأعمال ما بين المشاريع الريادية التي تعتمد على التقنية. بدأت مسيرته العلمية والعملية في الصناعة كمدير لمختبر ريادة التصميم، وذلك في شركة BNR، حيث عمل ما بين 1979 و 1990، وكان قبل ذلك قد حصل على البكالوريوس من جامعة ووترلو والماجستير من جامعة كارلتون والدكتوراه من جامعة أكسفورد ببريطانيا، حيث كانت كلها في علم النفس. تفضل please.
And what a magnificent setting you have for this, and what an impressive assembly of people to encourage this dialogue. I'd like to spend some time with you making some comparisons between Waterloo and Mecca. We're very different in some ways, but in other ways we're really quite similar. At the heart of both of our communities is a very strong academic tradition, an intellectual center in both regions that have become an intellectual catalyst for innovation and entrepreneurship. This is, of course, through our advanced training of our students and the conduct of world-class research. You have a larger university here, both in terms of the comprehensive subjects that you teach. We are a smaller university. We are about 25,000 at the University of Waterloo. Our neighboring university, Wilfrid Laurier, is about 14,000. University of Waterloo is strong in engineering, math and computing, and science in general. Laurier is strong in other areas. Waterloo is a research-intensive university, defined in Canada as those institutions that do beyond $150 million a year in externally funded research. There are, in fact, some 60 universities in Canada. Waterloo is in that third that does 1/3 of the 60 that do more than $150 million a year in research. You certainly wouldn't invite Waterloo here if this was a topic of how to train lawyers, how to train the new doctors that we need all the time. We are here in good company for what we do in the area of innovation and entrepreneurship. That is our claim to specialized knowledge and specialized experience and accomplishment. We have we have the normal tech transfer functions at the University of Waterloo, the same sort of functions that you would expect to find in those other research-intensive universities. I'm not going to talk about those today because I think there are a couple of other topics that are perhaps less obvious topics, but I'd like to use those and just cover three. I'd like to emphasize these three. Now I better push my button here. These three. First of all, the advantages that you can obtain, and we have obtained, by the empowering of student entrepreneurs to the creation of new ventures. I don't want to leave you with the impression that we don't support our faculty members in that regard. We do, but we also put a lot of effort in the support of our entrepreneurially minded students. So I'm going to give you two examples of how we empower these student entrepreneurs, one called Velocity and the other one called Enterprise Co-op. The second one is what we have learned about guiding lean ventures using primary research evidence. And here, again, two examples. One taken from the corporate innovation ventures, that is, as large companies try to be innovative, and sometimes they struggle with this, often they struggle with this, and what can we do to, through our training that we offer, advanced training, to improve corporate innovation. And the second example is entrepreneurial startup ventures. How do we do advanced training that supports the entrepreneurial-minded students? The third is various initiatives that we have nurturing the innovation ecosystem, a fancy word. It really means environment, the environment of the region of Waterloo. Some of these things could be applied in other regions, perhaps like Mecca. And here are two examples, Watco within the Accelerator Center of the University of Waterloo, and something called the Hub, which is within an organization called Communitech. I also make use of the fact that we have a very impressive number of students from Saudi Arabia at the University of Waterloo, an even more impressive number of students in Canada from Saudi Arabia, some 14,000 students from Saudi Arabia right now studying in Canada. About 200 are at Waterloo, and they tend to be focused in engineering, math, and science. And in any of my courses, and when I teach a graduate course, I have class sizes about 50. Fully 12 to 15% of my classes are students from Saudi Arabia. In fact, in our midst today are at least two of our former students, alums, from the University of Waterloo. I've made use of the fact that I had at my disposal people who knew the area of Jeddah and Mecca, but also knew the region of Waterloo and could give us some feedback. I know on the slide it says, no, in fact, it does say 6. 6 was the correct number. In a preliminary write-up, I had said that we would ask 2 of our Saudi students. We used 6. So these 6 are rather special. They know the local environment here, but they also know these examples that I'm about to describe to you from Waterloo. 2 of them are master's students, 4 of them are PhD students, 2 are from Mecca, 2 from Jeddah, and 2 from two other cities. So the first of these initiatives is the empowering student entrepreneurs toward new ventures. And I touched on the fact that Velocity is the way we do this in part. There are several initiatives that do it, but Velocity is one of these. Velocity is a residence for entrepreneurial students. Students compete to get into this immersive environment. They apply, but they're screened as well. They have to demonstrate that they have ideas. And when they're in there, it's totally immersive. They live it, they eat it, they sleep it, and they're thinking about their products and services with their colleagues, with their teams, 24 hours a day, I suppose, some of them. The focus in technologies tend to be in digital, mobile devices, web apps, and cloud computing. And these have the common attribute of having relatively low barriers to entry. These days, we're offering to the best of the teams 4 $25,000 awards per term, plus mentorship, networking, and office space, a place to expand their ventures. Another example under this Empowering Student Entrepreneurs is what we do in Enterprise Co-op. Now, I do realize that in some of your local experiences with co-op, where students study for a term, work for a term, study for a term, work for a term, you haven't had always the greatest success. Our experience at Waterloo is the opposite. Some of our best programs, and I mean all of engineering, are entirely 100% co-op. But Enterprise Co-op is different. This is a system by which we encourage some students, carefully picked, to begin their own ventures on their co-op work terms and to start their own companies. We mentor them, we encourage them, we often are able to finance them, and this has been a very interesting initiative. Now you could ask, well, what is the impact of velocity? The first example I touched on. Well, some 70 students per term are invited to live in this residence, and they have, at any one time, about 20 startup companies underway. And this is, of course, a good thing for the local environment to have all these startup companies, because it contributes to the innovation intensity in the region of Waterloo. Kick Messenger was an example of one of the startups, and this is a texting app for smartphones. Pardon me. The founder, a guy named Ted Livingston, started this with a few friends not many years ago, 23 years old. He was very successful with it. He donated back $1 million to Velocity to, in a sense, support the people who will follow behind him and have funding to get their ventures seeded and off the ground. This $1 million donation from Ted inspired our Ontario government to match it with another $1 million. And that's a good news story. That's the obvious part of the story. In all of my examples, I've got an obvious part of the story and then one that is less than obvious. The less than obvious part is that this is contributing to the intensity, the vibrancy, the excitement of a lot of startups being tried in the region of Waterloo. And it's a critical mass issue. You've got to have a certain amount of the activity to attract the investors, the mentors, the risk capitalists, and this is what we are observing with Velocity. The other one that I use for this same example is what's happened with something called Desire to Learn. And the first enterprise co-op student was a guy named John Baker, and he started this in 1999. And it was an online learning management system. There was, by then, just 12 years later, D2L, as it's sometimes called, is in the hands of more than 8 million users around the world. 450 institutions are using it. It's headquartered still in our region of Waterloo, but it has offices in London and Singapore, Baltimore. It's up to 380 employees and so on. A pretty nice story to tell. But once again, the nice story to tell is at one level. The really important thing is the excitement that all of this generates with many examples. Maybe not all quite so successful, but many examples. So we would ask our 6 Saudi students to give us feedback on these initiatives as we went through. I presented them what I'm presenting to you now. We stopped and did a questionnaire. And so I'll share with you in a few minutes what they told us. But the next one that we move to is guiding lean ventures using primary scientific evidence. And this is where we tackle the challenging task of teaching innovation and entrepreneurship. Some people will say you can't do that. How can you teach entrepreneurship? How can you teach innovation? I'm here to tell you you can. It helps if you're teaching entrepreneurially minded people, but you can organize courses. So here are 2 courses, one in business entrepreneurship and technology that focuses on the creation of new ventures at the early stage. And the other one is in the management of technological innovation, which deals with corporate enterprise, the established firms as they try to be creative and introduce new products and services. And we identified a gap in both of these. And in fact, in the corporate innovation ventures, we identified that there's a gap. If you consider these 3 levels of stages, if you wish, of development, where you could use evidence, the corporate world is pretty good at using evidence to refine the design of their product and service offering. They're not too bad at examining empirically how to position their firm strategically, but they're not very good at all when it comes to convincing the sponsors of their projects, convincing the rest of the organization that they should take on this activity. So we use, with our corporate innovation ventures, we've taken techniques from our entrepreneurship classes. So this is one you're familiar with. I know that you use it. It's the business model canvas. And we introduced that to the corporate training sessions because it gives more attention to the area that we call convince sponsors. On the entrepreneurial side, the same 3 areas that could use evidence: refine, design, position, strategically convince sponsors. This time, it's refine design that gets short attention. Most of the attention goes to convince sponsors, how to keep the money continually flowing. And not enough is spent through evidence, gathering the evidence that would help with the adjustment of the product and service offering. So we have ways in our curriculum to teach the evidence skills and introduce the evidence tools, and this is just a list of some of the things that would be covered under that topic. Once again, we had the questionnaire at the end of this part, and our Saudi students completed it anonymously. The third and last area that I wanted to touch on is what we do to nurture the innovation environment in the region of Waterloo. This time again, 2 examples, something called WATCO in the Accelerator Center, and this is a business accelerator, business incubator that has a team of advisors and mentors that provide quite a range of supportive services to the would-be entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs get space, they get a telephone, they get computers, they don't have to pay rent at the beginning, and this has been a very successful intervention, as has the second example, the hub in Communitech, which is a technology association in the community of Waterloo. Again, a space where people can have free or nearly free access to computers and networks and so on. This is a list of the incubatees that are currently in the hub. These are companies that are being incubated since 2010, because that's when the hub opened. It doesn't matter what their names are, it's just to show you that the list exists. Obviously, what we want to see is that these, or some significant portion of them, grow up to be large companies. You can see another list in that bottom right-hand corner of companies that were started in 1996 and grew to be a fair size by 2001, and it includes companies like Research in Motion and OpenText and Dulsa. Here's a list of companies, incubatees from the Accelerator Center. It shows 28 that were established since 2006, and a number of graduates, 20 of them over 6 years. And the point of this is that it's wonderful to have a list, but within a fairly dense physical space, we have, and it's just a matter of 6 kilometers, 10-minute drive. We have professional service providers, mentors and advisors, and we have that velocity, we have Enterprise Co-op, we have Management Sciences and CBET, all of this between the 2 incubators that I'm describing now. And this is a good thing for the region. The less than obvious thing is that the 2 incubators and all of the initiatives, because we have other incubators as well, we've learned how to encourage them to be supportive of each other and not neutralize each other's efforts by being overly competitive. We want them to support each other, to trust each other, and to work effectively together. There's some tricks to doing that. It's extremely important that it be done. So after this section, we had the Saudi students complete their questionnaire.
You have 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
3 minutes, I can do it. Okay. We asked our Saudi students, what are in your opinion, what are the most important things in the region of Waterloo out of those 3 types? And what they're telling us is that number 1 was the empower the entrepreneurial students. The second most was guiding the lean ventures. Now, you don't see big differences here. You have to look pretty closely with a magnifying glass to even see if that there is a difference. The third order effect was nurturing the innovation ecosystem. We asked, are there any natural advantages in Mecca Techno Valley, advantages compared to the region of Waterloo? And they said that they thought there could be some. And here's some feedback to suggest, as you move closer to the middle in the green, they were not, the middle of the triangle here, they were not seeing advantage. So they saw lots of advantage in how you could empower entrepreneurial students and how you can guide lean ventures, as well as the third area. We asked them specifically, what are some of the things that are on this advantage list? They said, well, Mecca has a youthful population that want new opportunities. They're energetic. They have potential for new programs in this region. They want outlets for their ideas. They said that government is supportive of them. Industry is supportive. They also, the last one I think is quite interesting, they want to see Mecca being able to develop a unique culture of entrepreneurship, not simply imitating what other jurisdictions have done. And they were probably thinking about the culture of commerce in Jeddah. We also asked what disadvantages might there be. And they said, yes, I suppose there are some disadvantages. And this says in this chart that, in fact, they saw some, but these were more like challenges, things to be overcome. They said, well, there are a limited number of mentors and advisors for entrepreneurs, but that could be solved. We also need a culture of greater risk-taking, something else that might be able to be shifted a little bit over time. An interesting one was the one third up from the bottom, which I had no way of knowing except I was told by these students, a need for enforceable laws to protect intellectual property and ideas. That what's the point of having ideas and trying to take them to market if they could be stolen? So in summary, we can talk about advancing entrepreneurship and technological innovation. I would say we do it with this circle. We start off by carefully planning. We take great care in how we execute. We use evidence effectively, and we learn. And when it comes to the learning, I say we will learn more if we learn together. I would like to try to stay in touch with you. I hope there's a forum 2013 and 14, because I'm very sure that there's so much to learn, there's a lot to share, and we will do better at it in both of our jurisdictions if we can do it together. Thank you.
شكرا دكتور بول على استعراض هذه التجارب في جامعة واترلو التي مكنت طلاب وخريجي الجامعة من تأسيس شركات وتحويل المنتجات الناتجة عن الابتكارات إلى المجتمع. ننتقل الآن إلى الأسئلة. لو في أي مداخلات أو مشاركة من الجمهور.
I'm Dr. Telmisani from the Medical College. I was graduated from Canada, and I think the Canadians should be proud. They trained most of our physicians, actually. Our college, maybe 80% of the physicians in the clinical part actually graduated from Canada. So you should be proud. Now, my question is to Dr. Abdul. Now, in the entrepreneurship, or when you are trying to be an entrepreneur and you are in a business, suppose you have partners, and in this business you want to have an action. And this action, actually everybody or most of your partners or those who are around you tells you this is not the right action. But your intuition says this is correct. What tells you just to act on it and just do it, in spite of or going against the flow, against what others say?
Yeah, yes, I think it's a great question. And what we suggest as an entrepreneur, the first requirement, you should have the passion. If you don't have the passion, then you cannot be successful. So you must have a enthusiasm and passion for idea you support. And the other thing is that you should learn by doing. You should not do too much analysis and get paralyzed by the analysis. So learn every encounter you have, whether you're talking to your friends, you're talking to customers, talking to your suppliers, talking to your student. Every interview, every meeting should be an experiment and a learning point for you. So learn by doing, and we suggest that one of the great commercial of Nike, just do it. And just do it. I mean, don't just wait for advices and all this thing, because the learning by doing is the greatest experience of all you can have. Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In fact, I have a question to the last speaker. He was explaining what is the similarities between Mecca Technology Valley and University of Waterloo. I don't see the challenges in our environment for entrepreneurship and innovation. If you can elaborate more in defining what are the challenges here in our environment. Thank you.
Actually, before you start, Paul, I just want to add on this. We will have a special session tomorrow on Mecca Techno Valley challenges and opportunities. So that would be a whole session, but I will let Paul actually just have a quick answer.
Well, I had better not ruin that session, but
yeah.
If I understand the question correctly, you would like to see more of the challenges explained, or are you asking, with all of the challenges that you feel, is there really a similarity between Waterloo and Mecca? Which of those two?
The local challenges, right?
That there are lots of local challenges?
يعني في المملكة تحديات في المنطقة أو في مكة أو في المملكة.
Mecca Technology Valley.
I'm not sure that
the local challenges.
I'm not hearing you, I'm afraid. But let me answer it one way. I'll interpret it one way, and that is to say, yeah, every region has challenges. Waterloo has had incredible challenges in the management of innovation. And for a long time, we were not happy with our record. In fact, Canada is generally not very happy with the record that it has on entrepreneurship and innovation. They see Waterloo as being probably one exception. There are other exceptions, I think. Vancouver, certainly parts of Toronto, parts of Montreal, and there are other places too. But Waterloo didn't have any natural advantages. I think you've got some amazing natural advantages here that can encourage innovation and entrepreneurship. The fact that you have the holy city with how many visitors every year that can bring perspective from around the world to notice new concepts that you might be testing. And I'm certain that this is going to be touched on later in the program, so I'm not going to go any deeper with that. But as we talked with our 6 students after the questionnaires were done, we definitely had the feeling from them that they were not seeing these challenges as being insurmountable, but they had to be overcome in order for people like them to come back to Mecca and become entrepreneurs. But they didn't see them as being insurmountable. Some of the things that you have as an advantage would be the relative availability to fund early stage ventures. That's so amazingly difficult to do in Canada. Very, very difficult to do. You want to even have some care not to overfund at the beginning, to make it so simple financially that the crucible, the pressures that have to come from thinking and working in the market get less attention than they should. So I see many advantages. Waterloo has so many disadvantages. I could tell you about those. We're not on the side of a mountain. We don't have a sea bordering us. We don't have a river or a lake. And often that's how Canadian cities got started. Waterloo got started because it found people with just raw energy and effort. And they learned to focus that into the entrepreneurship and innovation areas. So I don't think there's a privileged part of the world for entrepreneurship. It's always hard. It starts with some of the simple basics. I'm afraid that's a long answer to a very short question.
هناخذ بس أسئلة من السيدات وبعد نرجع
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
عليكم السلام.
طيب أنا بوجه سؤالي للدكتور ديفيد من جامعة إكسفورد. هم طبعا بنظرتهم لباعهم الطويل من النجاح والإبداع أبا يعني يا ريت يلخص لي التميز والنجاح والإبداع في كل مرة بيقدموا فيها مشاريعهم مرتكز على إيش أو إيش كيف أنا أكون متميز أو مختلف في كل مشروع أنا أقدمه.
How to achieve يعني this cutting edge in research.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think it helps at the start if the idea is sound, the idea is good, and it's difficult for other people to copy the idea. But the execution is performed by people, and it's the team of people, the skills and the qualities of the people. They take the idea and they can transform it into a successful business. And we have a phrase that we use in Oxford. Good people can succeed with a bad technology. Bad people will fail even if the technology is fantastic. So it's the team of people that you put together. When we create an entrepreneurial venture, we look for that special kind of entrepreneurial managing director to lead the team. They're backed up by the strong Oxford science, and they benefit from the experience of people who've worked in the laboratory. They benefit from our experience, the contact networks and the effort that we put into developing the sound business plan. But it's those people who execute who are at the heart of the business and the heart of success. But also, you know, some of the businesses, they benefit from luck. They change direction at exactly the right moment. And you know, maybe they are just blessed with the way that the market accepts the statements that they make.
Thank you. Thank you. أي سؤال هنا دكتور سامي.
Dr. Sami Barhamin, thank you very much for the speakers. I just want to ask about Dr. David here about you mentioned that you are looking to the fruit of the research and you try to make business out of it. I wonder whether we can work vice versa. For example, here in Saudi Arabia, we have more than 30 universities now. Can we intervene or we can coordinate with such organizations like yours to direct or to at least give a hint for the university professors about what kinds of research that it may be used in the future to create business and value added. Is that possible? Thank you.
It absolutely is possible. Is my microphone on? Yes.
Yeah.
It is absolutely possible to give indications to professors as to where some of the future payoff will be. You have to do this very gently, because academic freedom suggests, and many of us who are professors got into this line of work because we could explore the things that interested us. But today we've got to explore within boundaries. We have to explore where we can start to see some practical results obtained. We put a lot of attention to technology foresight and a certain amount of forecasting of technologies. And we combine that with scenario planning and something we refer to as backcasting, where you postulate future plausible scenarios, and then you say, okay, if that's where the future lies, what are the stepping stones on the trajectory from today to that future date? And we find that our professors in their labs have an appetite for this kind of work. They don't necessarily want to do it themselves, but they want well-trained students from our programs who do know how to do it and can join their labs for a period of time to help make some of those estimates. The other thing that on the entrepreneurship side that we have found is that entrepreneurship teaching programs that don't establish their roots in research tend to get blown around, tend to get blown away. They're like a tree with no root. And so we are very strong on research in entrepreneurship and innovation. We advocate it at every turn. And because we are researchers ourselves, it helps us when we go and talk to other kinds of researchers who are trying to think about, well, when will quantum encryption be important? Or some other, when will some very specialized use of ultracapacitors become important?
Excuse me, Paul.
Yes,
yeah.
Too much time.
Actually, the question was directed to David, so sorry. I appreciate your input, but
oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. That's fine.
Was it?
So we'll have two inputs now from Waterloo and Oxford.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
Great, that's okay.
We would never presume in Oxford to tell researchers what research to do. But what we found over the years, as the culture in the university has changed, is that university researchers welcome challenging problems. So we spend a lot of time in industry talking to them about their challenging problems. Their problems might be caused by maybe their existing materials rely on indium, and China owns all of the indium, therefore they need an alternative to these materials that doesn't contain indium. Now, if you take that knowledge back into the university and you say, here's an interesting research problem, oh, and by the way, it would actually be useful, then a university researcher would be inspired to take an interest in that field. And the majority of university researchers that I speak to, they are not driven by the financial gain that comes with having a spin-out. They're driven by seeing their science used for the benefit of society. So taking to them the messages that we get from our industrial partners, taking those back into the university is very much welcomed. And I'm sure we could bring those messages, the messages from industrial companies, in the kingdom and outside the kingdom, we could bring those messages to the researchers that you have, and they would find it inspirational, I'm sure.
Actually, tapping into Dr. Sami's question, we are actually working on a service contract with Oxford ISIS Consulting, just to get the benefit of learning from their experiences, as well as Waterloo and other universities worldwide, also with Babson. We'll take a question also from the female section and we'll come back. سيدات في مداخلة.
السلام عليكم، أمجاد مؤذن جامعة القرى. سؤالي موجه للثلاثة الدكاترة اللي شرفونا بحضورهم. أبى أعرف إيش نظرة المجتمع الخارجي للطلاب السعوديين على مستوى إبداعاتهم وفي مجال ريادة الأعمال. هل الطلاب السعوديين لهم بصمات واصلة حتى للخارج للمجتمع الغربي؟
I think Dr. Paul will be the guy. What do you think? You have lots of students from Saudi Arabia, so I think...
I'm reluctant to speak first since I stomped on somebody else's time. David, you better.
It's fine.
Well, I will say this, that of the students that we see from around the world, it's very rare to find a Saudi student who does not intend to come back to Saudi Arabia. They want to come back. They also want to be able to create new jobs. They don't want to be, I mean, they appreciate when there are government jobs, but they want other opportunities in addition to those. I think that there's definitely a necessity for Saudi Arabia to embrace the principles of open innovation and to be looking outwards, outside of the borders. And that is true for this kingdom as it is for any jurisdiction in the world. You don't do it alone. You do it in partnership. And that's one of the reasons that I was so excited by this forum, is to try to strengthen the co-discovery and locate synergies between Canada and Saudi Arabia.
حناخذ آخر سؤال عشان عندنا نطلع للبريك. الدكتور محمد السديري أظن مشاركة.
بداية أشكر القرى على تنظيم الملتقى الرائع في الإبداع والريادة. My questions goes to Abdul and to Dave. Abdul, I'm asking about the curricula that you are embedded on the entrepreneur, the embedded on the entrepreneur courses. You have two sides. One, you said you have the curriculum itself, which is teaching the course, and then you have embedded sort of skills outside the courses. We need to know how to do it. And to Dave, I need to ask about ISI's innovation. Is it the only companies that you have in Oxford, or do you have another companies deal with other businesses?
Well, I can, yeah. To answer the last part of the question, ISIS is the University of Oxford's technology transfer company, so there are no other companies, it's just ISIS.
I want to also answer to the female speaker who earlier asked us a question and we didn't answer. We have a lot of Saudi students at Babson, both in the undergraduate program and the graduate program, and I personally know a few of them. And we don't find any difference between Saudi student or a non-Saudi student or a US student as far as their intellectual curiosity, participation, or starting a business. And especially if you look at today's world, the technology is changing, and it's no longer the brawn or the physical manpower you need. You have to use your brain to start your business through the internet. And I can see a huge potential for Saudi female population to start the business from their home and using the internet and doing all these things, and there's a tremendous opportunity. Coming back to the this current questions about the curricular and co-curricular activity, we admit students who come from different background and they have no idea about businesses. So that's why when they come, we start this foundation management experience. So we bring them into a team of 30 students and said, just like a company, form a company, have somebody president, somebody CEO, somebody marketing person, somebody finance, and has any idea, and Babson will give you $3,000, and you go and start producing and selling the product. And whatever profit you goes to the charity. So that's the way we encourage a student to come up with outside the classroom. Then we have an e-tower, just like in Waterloo. They have a dormitory. We have a dormitory or student hostel, where the entire dormitory, everybody is doing something of entrepreneurship. So this create discussion outside the classroom, and then they go and participate in different events. They invite speakers, they invite entrepreneurs to talk in the class. So we create a whole atmosphere where the student takes the initiative. So you have to emphasize student taking the initiative and bringing them together in an environment where there's a fostering thought process and all.
Thank you. I think أول شيء نعتذر إحنا على التأخير شوية في الوقت، خاصة في الجلسة الأولى. مفترض أن الجلسة الثانية تبدأ الآن، فإحنا حنبدأ إن شاء الله الساعة 11. هناخد يعني حوالي 10 دقائق أو ربع ساعة استراحة بين الجلستين، وإن شاء الله نرجع نعود الجلسة الثانية. شكرا للمتحدثين وشكرا للمشاركين والحضور.
تقديم هدايا تذكارية. شكرا للمتحدثين في هذه الجلسة. يقدم هذه الهدايا الدروع التذكارية سعادة رئيس الجلسة درع تذكاري للبروفيسور عبدول علي. درع تذكاري ودرع تذكاري للدكتور ديفيد باجرست. والدكتور باول جويل. نشكر للسادة المتحدثين هذا النقاش، ونشكر لسعادة رئيس الجلسة، ونشكركم أيضا على حضور هذه الجلسة. نلتقي إن شاء الله بعد ربع ساعة، يعني في حوالي 11:05 بعد ربع ساعة من الآن بإذن الله. سوف يكون هناك حفل شاي في خارج القاعة لفترة الراحة بمقدار 15 دقيقة.